Imagine you're holding a plastic water bottle, you twist off the cap, and you just, like, pour the water directly onto the floor.
Oh, just right on the ground.
Right on the ground. You just watch it soak in. And, if you get thirsty an hour later, well, you can't drink that water. It's just gone forever.
Yeah, that is a really vivid image to start with because, I mean, time is basically the one resource we can never, ever get back.
Exactly. And today we're pulling from a really fascinating stack of behavioral psychology articles and language learning case studies to show you how you might be doing the exact same thing with your day.
Right, because when we look at our daily lives, especially when we're trying to learn something new, like, say, a language, we often feel like we just don't have enough water in our bottle to begin with.
Oh, totally. We feel entirely overwhelmed by this pressure to find, big solid blocks of time for our goals.
Yeah, like you need 3 clear hours or it's not even worth starting.
Right. And that is the exact mission for our deep dive today. We want to completely change how you view your daily schedule. We're going to explore how to stop throwing away those tiny gaps in your day and instead use them for, like, massive self-improvement.
That is such a vital mindset shift, I think, because so many of us are trapped in this rigid cycle of thinking, if I don't have a full free hour, I just can't study, I can't
It's
improve.
a really heavy burden to carry.
It is. And according to the behavioral psychology sources we have today, it's actually completely counterproductive. If we look at how human beings actually learn and build lasting habits, well, you don't need those massive hours.
So we're shifting from thinking of time as water we accidentally spill to treating it like loose change in our pockets. Right?
Exactly. The secret treasure of your day is hidden right there in your normal, messy, busy routine.
Okay, let's unpack this loose change idea because I find this metaphor really, really compelling. Let's think about time like coins. We all have big coins in our day. A big coin is like a 1-hour block of free time on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
But we also have a huge amount of tiny coins scattered everywhere.
Oh, they're everywhere.
Like 3 minutes waiting for the kettle to boil, 5 minutes waiting for the bus, 7 minutes sitting in a doctor's waiting room.
And what's fascinating here is how differently we treat those two types of coins.
Right.
Like if you drop a large bill on the street, say a $20 bill, you stop immediately and pick it up.
Oh, obviously. You value it.
Exactly. But those tiny coins, the 3 minutes here, the 5 minutes there.
We just treat them like the loose pennies lost in the sofa cushions.
Ah,
I mean, individually, a 5-minute coin feels totally worthless.
it really does.
I know my own reaction. I'll look at a 3-minute gap while I'm waiting for a meeting to start, and I think, well, what can I possibly achieve in 3 minutes? By the time I open a book, the meeting will just begin.
Right, so you just throw that coin in the trash.
Exactly. Right. I just pull out my phone, stare at the wall, or scroll through absolutely nothing.
Which is incredibly common. But the language learning case studies in our stack, they highlight a really brilliant real-world example of why throwing those pennies away is a huge mistake.
Oh, the story about the busy mother. Right.
Yes. So there's this story of a busy mother with 2 kids and a really demanding corporate job. She desperately wanted to improve her English for her career, but she was just completely overwhelmed.
Which is fair.
Oh, totally. She told her friend, I never have 1 full hour to sit down at a desk and study. I literally have 0 time.
And I mean, to be fair, that is a very valid feeling. 2 kids, a full-time job, her schedule is packed solid. I would probably feel exactly the same way.
Absolutely. Her feeling of overwhelm was entirely real. But then she started tracking her day and she realized she actually possessed like dozens of these small coins.
Wow.
Yeah. She found she had 5 minutes walking from her front door to the bus stop. She had 10 minutes sitting on a bench during her lunch break. She had 7 minutes lying in bed while waiting for her kids to finally, fall asleep.
So she actually had the time. It was just broken into all these tiny pieces.
Exactly. So she made a radical decision. She stopped looking for the impossible 1-hour coin. She exclusively started using this pocket time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. When she walked to the bus, she listened to an English audio track. During her lunch break, she reviewed vocabulary flashcards on her phone. She just completely abandoned the idea of a formal hour-long study session.
And I really have to ask, does that actually move the needle?
Yeah.
Because, intuitively, it feels like sitting down at a quiet desk for a solid hour of deep focus should be vastly superior to, like, reviewing flashcards for 5 minutes while a loud bus drives by.
Yeah, that is definitely the logical assumption. But the cognitive science actually says the exact opposite.
Wait, really? The opposite.
Yes, and it comes down to how our brains physically process and store information. It relies on a concept called spaced repetition. Small, frequent steps compound.
Okay, so
Like when you study in short bursts, your brain retains the information much better than if you do one exhausting cram session.
why is that, though? What is actually happening in the brain?
Well, think about cognitive load. When you try to force an hour of dense vocabulary into your tired brain at the end of a long workday, your focus inevitably drops after like the first 15 minutes.
No, I've definitely felt that. You just zone out.
Exactly. The last 45 minutes are largely a waste because your brain is fatigued. It just stops encoding new memories. But 5 fresh minutes while you wait for your morning coffee,
Right.
your brain is alert, it absorbs 3 new words quickly, and this is the crucial part. Really, it has time to process and solidify those words in the background while you go about the rest of your day.
Oh, I see. So it's not just that pocket time is a compromise because we're super busy. It might actually be the superior way to build long-term memory.
Exactly.
Like you're giving your brain these little, highly concentrated espresso shots of learning instead of drowning it in a massive pot of coffee all at once, which just makes you, jittery and tired.
That is a perfect analogy. You are utilizing your brain when it is fresh and then giving it the necessary transition time to physically wire those new memories into your neural pathways.
Okay, I am totally sold on the espresso shots.
Mm.
But this raises a very frustrating question for me.
Okay, what's that?
Well, if we all have all these valuable little time coins in our pockets all day long,
Mm-hmm.
why do my pockets always feel completely empty?
Right.
Like, why do I get to Friday evening and feel like I haven't had a single free second to myself?
Mm.
Where did all the coins go?
Ah. Well, that brings us to a very dangerous concept identified in our behavioral psychology sources. The reason your pockets feel empty is because you are actively being robbed by time thieves.
Time thieves. Okay, that sounds very dramatic. What exactly are they?
They are the specific habits, the mindless loops, or the apps that steal your time without giving you anything positive, restful, or useful in return. They just sneak into your pocket time, empty out your loose change, and vanish before you even notice they were there.
Oh, man. I have a painfully relatable example of this from the sources. Tell me if this exact scenario sounds familiar to you.
Go for it.
So, you're working hard on a project, your brain feels a bit foggy, and you say to yourself, I'm just going to sit on the sofa and take a quick 10-minute break to clear my head.
Oh, yeah. The most famous last words in the modern world.
Right. So you sit down and you pull out your phone just to check one single message. But then right below the message, there's a funny video,
Just sitting there waiting for you.
just waiting. And you watch it. It's only 15 seconds long. You
Yeah.
laugh. It feels nice. Then the screen automatically shifts and another video plays. And your brain whispers that sweet little lie. Just one more video. It's only 15 seconds.
And because the friction to watch the next one is literally zero, we always believe that lie.
Always.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you look up at the clock on the wall, and an hour and 15 minutes have just evaporated. Your quick 10-minute break turned into a massive time black hole.
Yeah.
And the worst part is the physical feeling afterwards. You don't feel refreshed.
No, you feel hollow.
You feel empty, your eyes are dry, you're tired, and you feel incredibly guilty. You can't even remember a single thing you just watched.
It's exactly like holding dry sand in your hands. You open your fingers just a tiny millimeter, and all that precious time just slips right through, leaving you with absolutely nothing to show for it.
Yes.
And that specific feeling of hollow regret, that sudden thought of, wait, why did I just do that? That is the ultimate proof that a time thief just robbed you. Because during that hour and 15 minutes, you didn't learn anything, you didn't grow, and crucially, you didn't actually rest.
Wait, let me challenge you on that last point.
Yeah.
Because this is where I start to get a little nervous about this whole concept.
Okay, lay it on me.
Well, if we are supposed to guard all our time coins from these thieves and use every single 3-minute gap for self-improvement, does this mean we have to be productive every single second of the day?
Ah, I see what you mean.
Like, am I supposed to be memorizing English vocabulary while I brush my teeth, while I stir a pot of soup, and while I tie my shoes? Because honestly, that sounds like a fast track to absolute burnout. Is resting considered a waste of our pocket time?
I am so glad you brought this up because the answer is a resounding no, absolutely not.
Oh, phew. Okay.
Yeah, using your time intentionally does not mean turning into some relentless productivity robot. Our sources use a brilliant framework here to explain the difference. You have to treat your mind and body like a smartphone battery.
Okay, a battery. How does that help us figure this out?
Well, if you use your phone heavily all day, running complex apps, making video calls, using the GPS, what happens if you never physically plug it into the wall?
The screen goes dark. It completely shuts down.
Exactly. And human beings function the exact same way. Good sleep, sitting quietly on your balcony with a cup of tea, taking a slow walk without headphones, just, staring out the window at the clouds. These activities are not time thieves.
They aren't.
No, they are the charger. You are actively plugging yourself into the wall and restoring your battery. Rest is an incredibly productive and essential use of your time.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so if sitting quietly with a cup of tea is actively charging the battery, what is the time thief doing? Why doesn't an hour of watching videos count as rest?
Because mindless scrolling on social media or falling down an internet rabbit hole is the equivalent of leaving your phone screen on maximum brightness while running 5 demanding apps at
Oh,
once.
wow.
Yeah, it rapidly drains your battery, but it tricks your brain into thinking you are relaxing simply because your physical body happens to be sitting still on the sofa. But your brain is actually processing thousands of images, sounds, and emotional triggers per minute.
That distinction is huge. True rest actually gives me energy back. Time thieves steal my energy, steal my time, and leave my battery closer to zero.
Precisely. The goal of capturing your pocket time isn't to eliminate rest. The goal is to eliminate that empty, exhausting draining so that you actually have more time for true rest and more time for true learning.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and really practical.
Great.
Now that we know these time thieves are actively hunting for our pocket time, and we know they're very, very good at their jobs, how do we protect our coins?
Right, the million-dollar question.
Like, if I suddenly find myself with a 5-minute gap waiting for the bus, how do I make sure I actually use it for my English instead of accidentally handing it over to a time thief?
You need to establish what the behavioral psychologists call a tiny plan.
A tiny plan. I like the sound of that. How does it work?
Well, think of a tiny plan exactly like a GPS navigation system in a car. If you get into your car, start the engine, and pull out of your driveway, but you don't put a specific destination into the GPS, what happens?
You just drive around your neighborhood in circles, you waste expensive gas, you waste time, and you end up nowhere.
Right. And in language learning, having a vague goal is exactly like driving without a GPS. If you wake up in the morning and say to yourself, well, today I will improve my English, that goal is way too big.
Yeah, it's incredibly vague.
Exactly. So when you suddenly find yourself with 5 minutes of pocket time at the bus stop, your brain is hit with decision fatigue.
Because I have to figure out how to improve my English in that exact moment.
Yes. Your brain has to ask, should I read an article? Should I listen to a deep dive? Which app should I open? Which vocabulary list? That is way too much friction. It requires too much mental effort. And because the brain is inherently lazy, it takes the path of least resistance.
Which is opening social media, because that requires zero decisions. Just tap and scroll.
Exactly. So to beat the time thieves, you must become highly intentional. You need to give your daily GPS a very precise, very tiny address before the day even begins.
Give me an example. What does a precise tiny address look like for someone trying to learn a language?
So instead of saying, I will improve my English, your tiny plan should be something like, today I will learn 3 specific new words while waiting for my morning coffee to brew. Or I will listen to exactly 5 minutes of a language audio while I'm washing the dinner plates.
It is so specific and so small that you almost can't fail. 3 words while waiting for coffee. I love how manageable that is.
It completely removes all the decision fatigue. But to make it work, you also have to create a safe environment to execute this tiny plan. You have to physically lock the time thieves out of the house.
Wait, how do we do that? Are we talking about throwing the phone in the freezer?
I mean, it might sound extreme, but the principle is exactly that. It's about protecting your focus by removing temptation.
Okay.
If you know you were going to use your 10-minute commute to read an English article, put your phone in Do Not Disturb mode before you even step out the door. If you are studying at your desk, physically put your phone in another room.
So it's about designing your environment so that you don't even have to use willpower.
Right. The sources emphasize that willpower always runs out. It is a finite resource. If you stare at a glowing phone all day, eventually you will pick it up. It's not about forcing yourself to be a perfect, disciplined robot. It's about being your own gentle coach.
I love that.
You set up the environment so that doing the right thing, like reviewing your flashcards, is actually the easiest option available.
This makes so much sense. If my tiny plan is already decided and my notifications are already off, then when those magical 5 minutes appear, I don't have to think at all. I just reach out and collect my coin. No stress, no friction.
And the beauty of this is that it scales to any lifestyle.
Mm.
Because everyone's day is completely different, your pocket time will not look like my pocket time.
Which actually brings us to a really fun challenge. We want to turn this concept directly over to you, our listener. Here's a challenge for you today, a little tiny favor we want to ask of you.
Yes, we want you to actively apply this lens to your own daily life.
The next time you go through your routine, look for the gaps. Tell us, where do you find your pocket time during your daily commute or routine? Where are your hidden coins? Are they waiting for the elevator in your apartment building? Are they sitting on the train during your commute? Are they those 4 minutes while you're waiting for the pasta water to boil?
Identifying these 3 to 7 minute gaps is the vital very first step to reclaiming them. You cannot spend a coin that you do not know you possess. So become an observer of your own day. Recognize the gap, and that is how you start collecting your treasure.
I highly recommend doing this today. Just look for the gaps. Now, as we've talked through all of this, we've used some very specific phrasing. And, having the right words to describe a problem often gives you power over it. Let's consolidate what we've learned and do a quick vocabulary tour to make sure you have the exact English terms you need to describe this to your friends or just to remind yourself.
I think that's a great idea. It really does help to have the precise vocabulary. It provides clarity.
Exactly. So let's start with our central theme today, the phrase that changes everything, pocket time.
Yes. Pocket time refers to the beautiful, small pieces of time in your day, usually just those 5 or 10 minutes. These are the transitional moments when you are waiting or moving from one activity to another. Instead of letting them evaporate, pocket time can be captured and spent on self-improvement. For example, you might tell a friend, I have started using my pocket time on the train to review my English vocabulary.
Pocket time. It really does make it sound like you're finding a little gift in your winter jacket. Okay, what about the obstacle? That scattered, fragmented feeling.
That is the feeling of being distracted. This is a state we all know way too well. Being distracted means your attention is jumping to many different things, and you cannot focus on what you actually want to do. It's usually caused by your environment, phones buzzing, loud noises, or constant interruptions.
So true.
You could say, I easily get distracted when I try to read with my phone sitting right next to my book.
Distracted. That is the enemy of the tiny plan.
Hmm.
So what is our weapon against being distracted? How do we fight back?
The antidote is being intentional. Doing something intentionally means doing it on purpose. It is making a conscious, deliberate choice beforehand.
Like programming the GPS.
Exactly. For instance, choosing to use a 5 minute gap to learn a new phrase, rather than automatically, without thinking, opening an app. You might say, today, I will be intentional with how I spend my morning commute.
Intentional. I love how empowering that word is. It puts you back in the driver's seat. And finally, the villains of our story.
The time thieves. These are the bad habits, the endless scrolling loops, or the specific apps that steal your time without giving you anything good or genuinely restful in return. They leave you feeling empty. An example sentence would be, endless video scrolling is my absolute biggest time thief.
Pocket time.
Huh?
Distracted. Intentional. Time thieves. It feels so good to finally have the exact framework to describe this daily struggle and, more importantly, the strategy to overcome it.
It gives you a roadmap, and having a roadmap completely reduces the feeling of being overwhelmed.
So, as we bring this deep dive to a close, what does this all mean for you tomorrow morning? The core message we want you to walk away with is simply this. You do not need to be perfect. You don't. You do not need to magically invent 3 extra hours a day to study. You just need to use your small time coins a little bit better, one gap at a time.
Absolutely. Start incredibly small.
But before we go, I know you have a final thought for us to really mull over, something to chew on as our listeners head back out into their busy days.
I do. I want you to imagine, just for a moment, that you treated your time exactly like you treat your physical valuables or your hard-earned money. If you were walking down the street, you wouldn't just let a stranger reach into your pocket, pull out your wallet, and take your money, would you?
No way.
You would protect it fiercely.
Sure.
So why do we so easily let a random app reach into our day and steal our 5 minutes? Time is the actual currency of your life. So consider this. If your entire life's legacy was built entirely in 5-minute increments, what kind of masterpiece could you create starting today?
Wow. Think about the masterpiece you are building, 5 minutes at a time. And remember that water bottle from the beginning. Let's stop pouring the water on the floor. Let's drink every single drop.
Thank you so much for spending your valuable pocket time with us today on this deep dive. We know you have a choice in what you listen to, and we are so glad you chose to be intentional with us.
It has been a real pleasure. Enjoy your next pocket of time, wherever you happen to find it.
Goodbye for now, and happy learning.